discussion to the Finance Committee meeting here on December 17th. Can any public comment? All right. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 19th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting as presented.
I'll second. All in favor? Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is the final adjusting change order for several pumping stations.
Yes, 3 pump stations, 2 of them in downtown Brunswick and 1 at exit 29. Popco got a contract to rehab the electrical systems at the 3 pump stations, as well as some building and structural work at the building at 4002 in downtown, the one with the mural on it. There's 2 deductions on this for $12,000, and then there's 3 charges for Georgia Power service changes, relocating the pole in service and things like that in there. The net change is $24,843.90, and there is also a time extension associated with this to get them to the end of their construction period of September 30th. This has been reviewed by our consultant, Kimley Horn, and they are in agreement with this. This is a 2.1% adjustment on the original contract amount. So the request is that we approve the change order to extend the project time to September 30th and to adjust the final contract amount to $1,780, $1,780,160.90. If this is approved at this meeting, this will enable us to close this project out in the very near future upon final payment of this and retainage. Any questions?
I have a question on the Georgia Power service change. That wasn't anticipated originally in the contract?
Todd?
To answer this? Yeah, Commissioner Cook answered that. Our engineer also acknowledges this in their memo. It was not known, it wasn't included, the electrical was included as a line item, but the Georgia Power relocation was not included in the scope of work for that line item for electrical. So it was not, because it says cost associated, were not known at the time of the bid, were not included in the original bid proposal. So
Right.
we didn't know at the time.
When, the next item we'll talk about, typically we put an allowance in there for that. That was not included in this because we originally bid this out with a larger scope, came in way over budget, and we de-scoped some items to get it closer to budget, and we did not include a allowance at that point for this.
Right, but I mean, the work that's done is something that must be done for the contract.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it was relocating the big power pole out from the station and getting it away.
Right.
It was necessary, and everybody knew up front, just didn't have a defined cost at the point.
And typically, we don't have really any control over the costs that are
From Georgia,
associated
well,
with that.
You're at their mercy.
If you see this here, the way the $36,000 before the $12,000 credit, line items 1, 2, and 3 are direct costs from Georgia Power, and then they put their 10% markup. So the only thing that's not a direct cost for the work is the $3,349 for the markup for Popco.
Okay, but they were involved in the planning with Georgia Power to do
Yes.
that. Yeah. Okay. Is this an increase or an upgrade?
It's
from
an
the current
increase
tower?
of, one of the stations changed voltages from 230 to 480 to 460. All 3 of them did. And then we also relocated the power pole. So the higher voltage actually reduces your power cost long term.
Okay, Good.
Before we do a motion, can you share the discussion from the Facilities Committee regarding this topic?
Sure. The Facilities Committee had some discussion over whether this should have been included in the original contract. It likely should have been. And also there was a recommendation, which we typically do this, but we did not because we de-scoped some of the items in this. We typically allow for some extra work items and contingency items to be included to handle small things like this, but that was not included in the scope of this contract. So typically, we may have, say, a 10% contingency line item, and then we would not have to bring that back to you for a small amount like this, but since the contract increased in cost, we had to bring that back to you for closing this out.
Okay.
But that's because the scope of this was reduced, right, from originally?
Yeah, scope was reduced from originally,
Well,
that's
that
correct.
all caused us to deviate from our normal procedure.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, all right. Are you ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll move the Finance Committee recommend the approval of final adjusted change order as a project time extension with an adjusted final project completion date of September 30th, 2025, and an adjusted final contract amount of $1,780,160.90.
And that date is correct. That's the date they actually completed the work and were off-site.
Okay, all right, great.
All right, I'll second. All in favor? Motion carries 2-0. Okay, another change order for pump station 4044.
This is the exact same thing with one minor difference. The amount is less because there are $6,837 of quantities not used that are some extra work items, as we talked about previously. And on this contract, originally, there was $25,000 included as an allowance for the Georgia Power cost. So the cost from Georgia Power, according to our consultant LEA, was $43,762.44. So the net for the electrical service change was $18,762.44. And then you would subtract out the $6,837 of line items that were not used for a total increased contract amount of $11,925.44 against the original contract of $1,980,656.90. Can't type. Is a 0.6% increase to the final contract amount. And this also includes a time extension to November 19th when they completed the final punch list items on the contract.
I do have a question. Typically, how do we do costing on the charges for Georgia Power? I mean, does the engineer do that in their calculations, or?
No, typically the Georgia Power, we would know it in advance.
They would come in and
We would have that number and it would be put in as allowance in advance. We put an allowance in on this one for $25,000. The charges were substantially higher than that, which is what the difference here is.
right, okay. I could see they're substantially higher.
Commissioner Cook, this one, they ended up moving a lot more poles than anticipated. There was a lot more stuff in the way. And so the relocation on 4044 was a lot more involved than originally thought.
Right. I mean, I'm assuming that we also have to meet their standards that they have as well as
Yes,
our own.
that's correct.
Yeah, so I mean, I understand that, so.
And there's only one provider to get it done.
Right, and of course, the other thing is that there's a real possibility with a lot of older things that situations weren't really what they should be now. And when you take into account hurricanes and things like that, you're actually increasing the possibility of safety. And I think that's important too, that it be done and done right as while we're doing it, so. Okay, I don't have any other, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay, are you ready for a motion then?
Yes.
All right, I'll move the Finance Committee recommend approval of the final adjusting change order as a project time extension with an adjusted final project completion date of November 19th, 2025, an adjusted final contract amount in the $1,992,582.34.
I'll second. Any other comments? All in favor? Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you for the explanation, I appreciate it.
All right. Mr. Owens will do the financial statement review for November the 30th.
All righty. Good afternoon. Today's financial statements for November 30th, 2025 should be pretty quick and painless. As we approach this time of the year, things kind of slow down as far as financial activity goes. Cash equivalents closed the month at $3,752,000. Almost no net change from the month before, largely because our payments that we made were offset by draws to the construction fund and the SPLOST account. Current AR, accounts receivable, that did see a noticeable increase of $680,000 to put that at $3,053,000. All of that was new current receivables based on November billing. So as we go through the month of December, we'll see those receivables come down as people pay. Of course, this time of the year, people are a little slower to pay their regular bills because they're focused on the holidays. So it's a normal seasonal fluctuation that we see there.
I will say, speaking of that, we will not be disconnecting throughout the remainder of the calendar year over the holiday period as part of our traditional last couple weeks of no disconnects. So people don't have their water disconnected during the holidays.
Other than that, there was no additional significant changes to current assets. So total current assets for the month ended at a little over $13 million. Restricted cash accounts, here we saw some noticeable decreases, which, as I mentioned just a moment ago, was our transfers out of the SPLOST account into our revenue cash account, and likewise a draw from the construction funds account. In SPLOST, we drew down 1.8 million, and from the construction funds, drew down 910,000. Those, and that brought us total restricted cash balance for the month at 62,971,000. On capital assets, construction in progress saw a significant increase of $2.88 million. The projects that this involved were Exit 29 water production facility and elevated storage tank of about $1.29 million. FEMA mitigation costs for installing 6 generators, that was about $624,000. Community road project saw $519,000 on that. Dunbar Creek clarifier and Dunbar Creek rehab both had about $182,000 in costs occurred to that. And what we saw here was largely costs that we had already encumbered moving into invoices and actual expenses and payments. That brought our total capital assets to $216,196,000. Total assets at $293,674,000. The biggest change in current liabilities was to accounts payable, which decreased 1.2 million net. Mostly that was payments that I mentioned to those aforementioned projects, and of course, a lot of those payments were offset by the draws. See, that brought total current liabilities to $10,339,000 for the month. And total liabilities at the end of November was $75,488,000. For our revenue summary, very normal month as far as the revenues go. Currently, water, sewer, debt charges, admin fees running better than budget. Interest income, that we saw a $232,000 change for this month, bringing that to $948,000. That was, of course, our normal interest income and a modest fair market value adjustment on our bond portfolio of about $39,000. Other income was perfectly normal this month after seeing a boost last month when we received the FEMA reimbursement for Hurricane Helene. Personal and operating expenses are, of course, the big drivers in the expense category. The personal expenses, largely, that's group insurance, as we've mentioned in past months. And operating expenses, I'll dig into a little more detail on the next page. The increase that I mentioned earlier in our accounts receivable, that was driving an increase to the bad debt expense for the month, even though it's current receivables, which are less than 30 days. Our formula takes about a 5% of that to hold as a possible bad debt. So that caused bad debt to increase $72,000 and put us at $234,000 for the year.
Can I ask, Mr. Barros, can I ask a question? How are we situated with overtime at this point? We're 5 months into the fiscal year compared to last year.
I can pull those numbers. I know that it's down compared to this point last year. I can have those numbers for you tomorrow.
All right. Yeah.
I think that it was down probably 10 or 15% year to date. A lot of that obviously has to do with last year. We went through hurricanes.
Right.
This year
yeah,
we did
that's what I
not.
was
So
wondering.
we are lower on that because we didn't have the hurricane
a good
impact.
summer with no
Right.
unusual occurrences.
Exactly.
I just wanted a little perspective on that.
Yeah, I can certainly have that number for you tomorrow.
Thank you.
And our total net revenues before capital fees was $416,000. Currently, that puts us almost $117,000 better than budget year-to-date. The detailed expense shows that finance, wastewater operations and treatment plants, and water production are the areas where we've seen the largest budget overages so far. In the finance department, that, of course, is our group insurance, because group insurance for the whole company is housed in our general ledger under finance. The wastewater and water treatment plants, we've seen significant costs for the months, $225,000 for oxygen and other chemicals, about $386,000 on equipment repairs. Can't read my writing. $119,000 for rentals and $176,000 on biosolid removal. All of that contributed to the wastewater operations and the wastewater treatment plant totals that you see on the report, the $3,718,000 and $2,836,000 respectively. Water production and distribution was basically $155,000 for chlorine and phosphates, $52,000 for infrastructure repairs, $36,000 electrical parts, 20,000 meters, and $31,000 for electricity. Those were the big drivers this month for what we currently see as our total year-to-date costs of almost $1.4 million for water production and $658,000 for water distribution.
What was the number for meters again?
Meters, 20,000.
Yeah, so one of the things that can occasionally cause issues for distribution's budget is all of the new meters that are installed are charged to their budget.
Right.
And we have no way of projecting when they're going to come in. So that is offset by revenue
I was going to say.
because they're
there's a
paying for the
definite
meters,
offset,
but
yeah.
the expense shows
Right.
up in the
It
expense
begins
account.
immediately.
It begins immediately, that's correct.
Right.
See, the next two pages are our cash report. This was largely covered in the current and assets section of the balance sheet, as well as the restricted cash accounts. Just to kind of hit some highlights, we have overnight cash of about $3.7 million. Bond sinking fund, $1.7 million. Reserve accounts totaling $39,947,000. Construction fund of $5.2 million.
What kind of overnight rate are we getting?
That has
it
dropped
decreased, I assume?
below 4%, so we're now at about 3.87, probably 3.875. And that doesn't reflect, of course, what we saw just last week with another Fed
with
rate
another-
increase.
right, there was
So
another-
I'm expecting the cash portion of our investments would probably in the next month be yielding about 3.625, 3.7.
They'll go down the full 25 basis points or
It-
maybe not?
It will, I
Okay,
imagine,
yeah.
because they tie that pretty quickly
Right,
to
I was
those.
thinking they,
Yeah.
just like when something happens in the Middle East, gas prices go up the next day. We know how that works.
Oh, yes.
They reduced that, I got it, so.
But if you go to the next page, the investment summary, you can see our overall portfolio is still returning well over 4% at 4.21 to market value. We've almost eliminated all of our really low-yield investments. We've got one more, which is a municipal bonds from Wisconsin, that those will mature at the very beginning of May this coming year. And of course, our portfolio is also currently showing a gain, an unrealized gain of $218,695. But the bond portfolio total right now is $49,047,000.
We're not probably looking for any more municipals, are we?
No.
Probably not at this point.
Not based on what we'd done
I was
previously.
gonna say.
We seem to be quite happy staying with
Yeah.
U.S. Treasuries. And within a certain category of U.S. Treasuries seems to be the sweet spot at the moment. So we
Appreciate
continue
your
to work
efforts
with
on
our
that.
Synovus reps and make sure that we're doing the best we can there. Finally, the last 2 pages, the project report. Previously, I mentioned about 5 projects that saw some significant costs that affected our cash balances and construction in process account. Looking on the project summary itself, you don't see a lot of cost impact here because those costs were already encumbered for the most part. There was about 387,000 new costs to show up on FEMA mitigation, but everything else was really movements between the encumbrance and the expense columns for the other projects, which were Community Road, Dunbar Creek Rehab, Dunbar Creek Clarifier, some Academy Creek RAS replacements, elevated storage tank at exit 42 and SPLOS exit 29. And that is our financial report for the month of November.
My question, David, so back to page 4, and my question is related to the new software system that we're looking at. Will the reporting be different for the financials? Have we gotten to that point in the
It's a loaded question. Better be.
discoveries?
I'm highly optimistic that we'll be able to do a much more flexible reporting, as well as deeper dive into the numbers. Basically, it's going to be a matter of what would you like to see?
Okay.
And with a new system, we'll be in a much better position to be able to provide that each month.
Okay.
Our current report generator within the system, very limited. And what you see here actually requires a lot of manipulation in Excel to get just these reports.
A lot of labor. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
'Cause
usually
what I
about a
think-
good day and a half.
Yeah, I think what we're looking for is a way to delineate how a capital expense can impact these numbers. In other words, if you look at wastewater production and you see a $297,000 loss year-to-date, you might assume that there's a bunch of overtime, or we're overstaffed, or or that something's going on that we may or may not, that we might have control over. But if those capital items were to hit in a different line, and
Right.
then the costs that we have control over hit in a certain line item, then, because when I see a capital transaction can make this look like
Oh, yeah.
we're managing this thing really, really well, or it can hide something.
Right. Yeah, everything,
Unintentionally, of course, but
everything
that's
for a
what we've been
capital.
talking about for 2 years, and I think the system's just so limited.
Right. Everything that goes towards a capital project, of course, goes into our construction in progress account, which shows up as an expense item and shows up as an operational expense in these reports. Of course, once that is capitalized, once the project is complete, moved on to the balance sheet, and we have the depreciation is the only monthly cost we see. That's easily something that will be fixed in the new system.
Yeah.
So we'll see costs that are, I think, more aligned with actual cash expenditure, operational expenditure cash flows. So,
I sat through a couple of the demos on there, and I would suspect that whatever system we pick, that it actually would be able to give our commissioners read-only access to be able to access the information anytime during the month.
Well, you can do that anytime during the month and set up individualized dashboards for what you want to see.
Right.
Right.
They would, that's how customizable the new things are. And I happen to know what they go through. They jump through a lot of hoops to create this. If I took their Excel away, we'd be in big trouble here. So, but it's a lot of work to do this every month, and I know that it takes you a while to get it.
And as I mentioned, it's about a day and a half just to create this report.
yeah.
And then I spend a good morning comparing this report to last month's report and digging in to see what were those actual cost drivers, like, for example, the biosolids, the chemicals, and how much we spent month to month.
We do appreciate it, though.
Yeah, I think, that kind of information makes, obviously, the numbers more meaningful and gives a better idea of,
I
where
think
our
you'd feel
costs are
more
coming from.
comfortable, wouldn't you, if you could access information at any time?
Yeah. I
Where you
mean,
can, and they could even, if it's not getting anything, I'm sure they could customize a report for you within that, because the reporting features that I saw were like, that's exactly why you would want this new software. Because you can get an executive view or a deep dive or anything you want in very easily, so,
Right.
which is important, I think, to us. And to some people who work in the building, I believe also, for sure.
Right. Yeah, the two vendors that we're down to in our consideration at the moment, I think both of them have pretty good reporting capabilities, and like I said, we'll be able to set up customized dashboards for individual users and others, and have a lot of fun with the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's like moving from the a little mini car to the real car, the good sized car that'll actually perform as expected. It's
Yeah, we're going from a Pinto to a Corvette.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can go that fast.
All right,
I don't think we
anything
can afford the insurance on the Corvette.
anything else?
Nothing from me.
Motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second, all in favor?
See?
Thank you. Yeah, we're much more efficient.